welcome into a special NCAA tournament show here on the Warrior Sports Network, joined by Mike Leaf, head coach of the Winona State basketball team. And Coach, look between us, we have two conference tournament trophies, one by you and the Winona State men, then also a trophy won by the Winona State women this past weekend in St. Paul. We'll talk about the NCAA tournament and everything that goes into that here in a minute, but let's look back for a second on this last weekend, 3 games in the NSIC tournament. The Winona State team that we saw this weekend was, I think, the team that everybody had hoped that they would see all year. Just a fantastic effort out of everybody who stepped on the floor for you.
Absolutely. And first I like to congratulate Scott Ballard. Has done a great job, and those gals are playing some great ball. And you know what? One of the things is that people don't realize is, you know, you beat a Concordia team at their house. I mean, at tournament time, that's one heck of an accomplishment.
That's tough to do, especially with the guards they have.
Absolutely, absolutely, and I tip my hat off to them. Yeah, our guys are, you know, I think we're playing some good basketball, you know, obviously, and it's just a matter of, you know, I thought that was going to, that championship game was going to be the lowest scoring basketball game in history, but, you know, we played really well together. We played solid defense, and one of the things that worried me throughout the year was our rebounding, and I thought we did a really, really good job of that. So we've got to continue to do that to be successful. You
mentioned after that championship game in which you held St. Cloud State to 44 points, just a fantastic defensive effort. You know, kept Taylor Witt, a fantastic shooter, in check. And I heard you say when you were doing interviews after the game that this is one of the best defensive performances that you've seen in a really, really long time.
Absolutely. You know, and it's we've tweaked our defense the last few weeks, and one of the biggest things for us is not to give up, you know, dribble penetration, and that's been a real key for us. But the rebounding is really huge, and I think, you know, Clayton Vetty and Caleb Paulkert, they've really stepped to the plate. And don't forget, John Wahlberg has done a great job as well. But the thing that I preach to these guys is that our guards have to really crash the boards. And you look at somebody like a Ben Fisher getting you 6 or 7 rebounds is huge. And you just have to have that happen. And excuse me, I do have a cold.
It's been fighting it all week.
I've been coughing, but I really do. I think that's been a big key for us, is our perimeter guys are getting in to the basket and getting us those rebounds.
And if you look at those 3 games in the conference tournament, first round game at Concordia St. Paul, and then you head back up there for games this weekend against Minnesota State, and then the championship game against St. Cloud. It's a different guy each night. Ben Fisher has 6 threes in the opening round game. Xavier Humphrey has 20 points in that game. Go to the win over Minnesota State, and it was really just a team effort there, but John Wahlberg hits a couple big shots, gets some great minutes from everybody who went in. And in that championship game, Clayton Vetty really established himself down low early, got a lead, and just didn't let St. Cloud come back. And so everybody, and you can point to them, each person who stepped on the court for you last weekend, just played their part to perfection.
Absolutely. You know, I guess, you know, I give a lot of credit to my assistant coaches. They do such a tremendous job recruiting Coach Gove and Coach Brown. And one of the things that I tell them all the time is that we need to bring in players that can do multiple things. And when we scout teams, you know, you're sitting there looking at 1 or 2 that you got to stop. And if you look at even the St. Cloud game, we got I think it was 4 guys, maybe 5, that were in double figures. And so I think it's really important that you have people on the floor that you know, on any given night they can do some special things. And you're right, Clayton Vetty, you know, he didn't have the greatest game against Mankato. We win the game the next day. were at shoot-around, and I'll tell you what, that guy was focused. He was really focused,
Yes, he was.
and he wants to win so bad. And he showed that against St. Cloud. So it's these guys are really, really motivated, obviously. And this time of year, as I told them, it's so-called March Madness. You want to be successful, and you want to do, this is what we've been working for since last, October. And, I was really proud of the fact that they played together, played as a team, and the biggest thing was defensively and rebounding, and they got the job done. And like I said before, it might have been the lowest scoring performance ever, but, I mean, you hold St. Cloud to under 50 points, my gosh, that's some tough defense.
They have some unbelievable shooters on that squad who can light anybody up on a given night.
You betcha.
The trophy in and of itself is fantastic, but when you take a step away and look at the larger picture, without this trophy here, chances are you're not playing in the NCAA tournament. One of those you have to win to get in situations, win the 3 games in the conference tournament. Now we can start looking forward to the NCAA tournament, the big dance, if you will. First round game Saturday against host Minnesota State Mankato. They're in Mankato, 6 o'clock at the Taylor Center. A Minnesota State team that you beat last Saturday. So a 1-week turnaround, and you'll be facing them again. This has to be just very, very exciting for you to be back in the national tournament. And it's the same thing as when the conference tournament started. You're 0-0, and anything can happen. Anything can happen.
And I will tell you this, Mankato, they're a phenomenal team. They got such great talent. They're coached extremely well, and we will have our hands full. Mm-hmm. But like you said, you are 0-0, and you got to go into their house. I have to say this is that we're up at Concordia playing those games, and two-thirds of the crowd is Winona State.
Yes.
Just absolutely incredible, and we've got the greatest fans across the country. I really believe that. And
they were loud all game.
They were loud, and it's one of those things where it is tourney time. It doesn't matter where you play. We've been fortunate enough to host a lot of these games, but it's tournament time, and it doesn't matter where you play. But this is where you got to play your best, and we've got guys that are stepping up to the plate, mistake-free ball, and we just got to get that done come Saturday.
What were you able to do? You lost to the Mavericks twice during the regular season. They got you in both of those meetings. Then to beat them last weekend in St. Paul, what were you able to do a little bit differently that hurt what they try to do against you?
Well, I think the biggest thing was that their point guard, Hill, is so good at taking the ball to the basket, and he can shoot the 3. So I think, personally, he's their biggest weapon. And but they've got others as well, and we've got to make sure that we take away the dribble penetration. We just have to. And the other thing too is that when you get to tourney time, people don't realize this, but there's pressure. If you're the number 1 seed, and we've been there, there's a lot of pressure on you, and I'll tell you what, it's tough. It really, really is tough. So I love going into this game being, basically an underdog. I really do. And but I think there are a lot of pressures that come along with the tournament time. And we've got a couple players that were on our championship team, and Brad Meyer and Ben Fisher and Bryce, and they've expressed their opinions, and they know what it takes, and so I think that experience really will help.
You mentioned those 3 seniors. A great way to send them out. It's your 7th consecutive trip to the national tournament. So those guys will have been to the national tournament all 4 years that they played, and thinking about this trophy here from the conference tournament, I don't think Brad Meyer was going to give that up very, very easily. He just held that thing in the locker room and walking out of the gym. That was his, and he wasn't going to let anybody take it away from him. A really nice way to send out those three guys who have done so much for your program.
Absolutely, and I think the world of Brad Meyer. I really do. He's he's one of those guys that a couple of years back didn't play a whole lot of minutes, and he's moved up the ladder, and he's shown that with hard work you can get it done. And I'll tell you what, that last game, 2 games ago, he had 2 points, and but he played really, really well. And then you get to the championship game, and he steps it up, and I think he had 12 points or something like that. And but he played so hard, but it's not points. Brad Meyer plays defense, and he plays it hard. And I throw him up against guys that are 6'6" and 6'7", and he gets the job done. And across the board, the 3 guys are really, really special.
Mm-hmm, absolutely, and it'll be great to give them one last run here in the national tournament next weekend. Again, 6 o'clock Saturday in Mankato. It's going to be an absolutely electric atmosphere. We're counting on a lot of Winona State purple in the crowd. It's going to be great as the Warriors try to continue their postseason run here in 2011. Coach, thank you very much. We'll be right back with Coach Scott Ballard of the women's team, talk about his team's championship run.
And the 2011 M2, Ben Fisher from Winona State. Let's give all of our outstanding student athletes a round of applause. Basketball tournament champions, the Winona State Warriors, coached by Mike Lee.
This will be done at the post office.
IUM. Ready? Anytime, Cody. Anytime, Cody.
For the best cars, best prices, and best people, get your hoops on the sunny side of Highway 61, Sugarloaf Ford Lincoln Mercury. And speaking of hoops, 3 lucky fans will be drawn in the second half of each game for a chance at a half-court shot, the last home game to win a brand new 2011.
And welcome back. I'm joined by head coach of the Warrior women's basketball team, Scott Ballard. Coach, first off, congratulations. What a fun weekend of basketball it was up in St. Paul.
Thanks, Matt. It was a great experience and something that our players and their families and our staff will remember the rest of their life. But it's also just the beginning of March Madness. And I think our players really are excited about what's coming up, and we're certainly going into the regional tournament with a lot of momentum.
Your first ever NSIC tournament championship in the women's basketball program history. When did you really feel the magic of this team? You picked up a great win against Augustana. You followed it up with the 7th ranked team in the nation, beating Wayne State, and then beating Concordia St. Paul, a team that had beaten you twice. What did this team, really figure out, and how did they come together so well this late in the season?
Well, I think it started when we beat Duluth, the second half against Duluth. We had our back to the wall. We were down 8 at halftime, and they were just being really physical with us, and we weren't being aggressive. We weren't getting to the free throw line. We weren't making anything happen, and we had a little heart talk at halftime and said, hey, if you don't like the way things are going, we got to do something about it, and we've got to go after these people and just trust your instincts, but just be aggressive in everything you do. Just attack them. And I think the light bulb came on, and they learned how effective that was, and they have not lost sight of that since. It didn't matter who we played, what style of team we were playing, whether they're big, whether they're quick. And because of that intensity and that physicality, effort-wise, we have been so much better defensively and rebounding-wise. So we reminded them today, before practice, when we were watching film on Metro State, that back before Christmas, the first 6 weeks of practice, we always had a quote on the bulletin board or on the locker room door, the quote of the day for practice that day. And the last one that we put up there, and we've not changed it since, was defense and rebounding in these championships. And I told them today we had that trophy up in our film session, and I said that is a testament to that last quote, and that thing is going to last. That quote has got to live with us for the rest of this season. But they have bought into that, and they believe in each other and the system and what they're doing so much now. They've just bought into it that they are focused and pay attention to every word that we share with them now. And it was just very refreshing and exhilarating to coach them this past week, because I honestly felt like I didn't have to do a lot of X's and O's. It was just sub, just, hey, it's your turn, give them a break, you got 2 fouls, whatever. But every person that we've put into the game these last 2 weeks has been ready to play. And it's a mental thing when you get late in the season. And we have figured some things out, and even in practice today, we didn't go up and down the floor. We just went over some half-court execution stuff. But, we're sharp. Passing, even going against each other. Passing, execution, not throwing possessions away offensively, and not taking possessions off defensively. And when you have a group that has that figured out, and they bring that intensity and that focus and play that consistent, man, they're hard to beat. And so at this point, I don't want to come across as being cocky or arrogant or whatever, but we're confident. We feel good about our game. We don't care who we play. We know this time of the year, everybody you play, they're really good. And they've had great seasons, or they wouldn't be there. and there are challenges in different ways. You don't beat everybody the same way, but everybody can be beaten some way. And so they trust our game plan. We trust their effort and their decision making, and it just feels like a really good marriage right now, you might say.
Just name off one of the players that had a great weekend. Mariana Duelist, she had 10 rebounds in that game against Augustana. You even got, against Wayne State. You even got Wayne State to break their 2-3 zone.
Yeah.
And, like you said, they started to chase you guys, Afton Glander.
Yeah.
What a weekend. She had her best weekend, her best 3 games, a career high against Augustana, 8 assists, and then more, 7 assists, 8 assists. What player to you maybe stood out the most, or maybe was this just a complete team effort?
Well, you're asking me to name one, and you just got done naming 2.
See, I can't even name
neither one
one
of them were on the all-tournament team, so, but they're all stepping up. They're picking each other up. You mentioned Mariana Duelist. We have been in need of more rebounding from the guards all season long, and against Wayne, she had a double-double, 14 points, 10 boards. She backed it up with 9 rebounds against Concordia. She jumps about like I do, but she's being physical, and she's anticipating, and she's being active, and all of a sudden that game with Wayne, when she ended up with a double-double, she was more proud of those 10 rebounds than she would ever be of 14 points. Because that's something that's not her strong suit, or hasn't been. But now it's like that has become really, really important to her, and she did it again the next day against, jet quick people, very athletic people. So having a guard that is going to help us rebound like that makes us compete better with big teams. It takes some second chance opportunities away from your opponents. Katie Wolf hit 2 huge threes against Concordia. We got down 6, and we got a 3-point play, and then she hit a 3, and then she hit a 3 later in the game to give us a 3-point lead. She had some nice drives. She didn't finish them sometimes against Concordia, but just being aggressive and getting to those gaps against that type of athleticism shows that she's being aggressive. She had good intentions, and she'll finish those better next time around. Michelle Mcdonald, what can you say about her? I mean, tournament MVP. She's been doing it all year, but now she's just being so active at both ends of the floor. She's a difficult matchup for our opponents because she can shoot the 15-footer, she can drive it to the rim, she can crash the boards, she's an 85% free throw shooter, and if they focus in on her, then they turn Allie Giggler loose for her patented 15-foot elbow shot. And against Wayne, she was bringing them out of their zone by hitting the short corner or elbow shot. It's like, pick your medicine, and then when you got the guards that are knocking down enough threes from the perimeter to make you play them honest, it's like, what do you do? I have only seen Wayne pulled out of their zone like that twice in the last 3 years. The first time was against us 3 years ago when we had, Kelsey Homewood and Jenny Steffen and Molly Anderson and Jamie Majerowitz. But that really gave our kids a lot of confidence in that game when all of a sudden Wayne comes out, 6-7 minutes ago in the game, and they're coming out and trying to play man-to-man because that's not their forte. And then we were able to get to the free throw line. Michelle McDonald was able to drive the ball to the rim and get to the free throw line. And, because we're a good free throw shooting team, take care of the ball, it's winning us close games. We're 11-1 this year on games decided by 8 points or less, and it's because of those two.
All right, well, thank you very much, Coach. Good luck. You got to get up early.
Yeah.
Get on that plane out to Colorado. So good luck out there. Don't forget you can listen on the radio, or if you want to be an avid fan, get out to Colorado as the Warrior women get underway on Friday against Metro State at 4 o'clock. Coming up next, Grant Wall will rejoin me, and we'll talk a little bit more about this March Madness.
From Winona State, Katie Wolf. And the 2011 NCAA Women's Basketball Championship Tournament Most Valuable Player Award to show the
Yes, what?
At Hy-Vee, your health is what matters most.
That's why we offer hundreds of organic and heart-healthy foods.
Expertise in disease management and over 100 in-store dietitians. We'll customize a diet and exercise program for you and your family. We're your personal health team, here to keep you healthy and happy.
To this special NCAA tournament show here on the Warrior Sports Network, joined now by Matt Prink. And Matt, March is always such an exciting time of year. Tournaments, conference and national tournaments going on. A great time to be a basketball fan, but it's especially exciting if you're a Winona State fan, having both the men and the women winning conference titles and now advancing in the national tournament. As a Warrior fan, this just doesn't get much better than this.
You know, it was a roller coaster regular season, and a lot of people, they counted them out. They said, oh, they've been struggling. They haven't lived up to expectations. But we said it throughout the season. It doesn't matter what you did in the regular season as long as you get hot at the right time. And both teams, they go 3-0 in the NSIC tournament and punch their tickets to the regional tournament. And this has been the best basketball I've seen in the last couple of years here, watching and on the sidelines here. And it's just great to see when you win, but when no one expects you to win, that's what's made this run that much more special.
And we just talked to Coach Ballard, and so we'll talk a little bit more about the women's team. A team that had its ups and downs, just like the men's team, and just like any other team in the country. You have your ups and downs, your peaks and valleys throughout the year. But over the last 2 weeks, you'll start out with those final two NSIC regular season wins over Duluth and Bemidji State, and then going into the conference tournament, This team has really come together, and they are playing just fantastic basketball. Katie Wolf, Afton Glander, Mariana Duelist outside. Get the ball inside to Natalie Gigler, Michelle Mcdonald. Michelle Tobin's coming off the bench and just playing unbelievable. This is a team that is really gelling together when it matters the most.
Yeah, and you see them go, they haven't gone to the bench quite as deep late in this season, but when you get the production you do from those 7 players, and Afton Glander, we've been talking about, she's played her best 3 games of her entire career at the right time. 8 assists in the first round, 7 again, and then another 8 assists, 0 turnovers, and I think we said 111
111 minutes in the conference tournament, 19 assists, 0 turnovers. She was already in the top 10 nationally in assist-to-turnover ratio, but that is just a ridiculous stat line. And when you get production like that from your primary ball handler, taking care of the ball, not turning it over, getting it to the right people who need it, I mean, that right there is your basic recipe for success. And you said it, she's playing her best basketball when the team needs her the most.
Well, the 3 C's, she was calm, cool, and collective, and that just trickled down. You saw a different confidence for this Warrior women's basketball team. Katie Wolf, she had that quick shot. She was feeling confidence right away from the 3-point line, and they had some rolls going their way as well. That Saturday game against Augustana, the shot clock's winding down, and Katie Wolf just kind of has to fire one.
Yeah, a near half
from about 40 feet,
yep,
maybe further, and she just knocked it down. Afton Glander had a 3-point shot bounce about 10 feet above the iron and go back in, and you just saw. We talked about the men too. That smile on their face. They're playing loose. They're playing smart basketball. And Mariana Duelist, 10 rebounds. She was just unbelievable flying into the lane. Michelle Tobin, as you said, coming off the bench, giving Michelle Mcdonald that time to rest up and come back in, and she really responded well.
Yeah, Mac's play was unbelievable in that tournament. She went on to be the tournament MVP. And she has really cemented herself as someone, if you're a Warrior opponent, your number 1 goal is to stop Michelle. And then that frees up lanes for Natalie Gigler, for Katie Wolf. Afton Glander had 16 in that first-round game against Augustana. Just so many weapons that this team can employ right now. And
Natalie Gigler is one of the most consistent performers from this team, and she has really all 4 years. When they get that high-low opportunities going, and they get Michelle Mcdonald down on the block. You saw it against Augustana the most, and then Wayne State, the best 2-3 zone arguably in the nation, and they made Wayne go into a man-to-man defense. Yeah. That is the panic level that Wayne State reached.
They completely took
in
Wayne
the
out of their
tournament,
game.
And when you tried to go inside, Michelle Mcdonald, she'd get it, kicked it right back out, and Wayne was already spread to try and take away Gigler and Wolf. That players like Boo Alberson, she's been playing great as well and shooting the 3 very well. She had 3 back-to-back threes that really stretched that lead for Warriors over Wayne State.
Let's move on to the NCAA tournament now. It's the next destination for the Warriors. First-round game against Metro State on Friday. The second tournament appearance for the Warriors in program history, and also the second in 3 years as head coach Scott Ballard has really taken this program to places that it had never been before. An exciting time to be a part of the Warrior women's basketball team. What do you expect from this women's team now as they head out to Colorado?
Well, if you're any team in the RMAC right now, this is the last team you want to play.
Yes,
and 2 of the hottest teams coming in are the Warrior men and the Warrior women, and they've found something. And they're smart. They're smarter than they were in the season. They've gotten consistently better each game. I thought we saw that Augustana game. I'm like, they played their best basketball this season. They followed that up with their best game of the season against Wayne State. And then they took down Concordia St. Paul in their own building, a very athletic team that's also in the region. And they got to be looking at Winona State as, a lot of people probably don't want to play us, but when they get it going inside to outside, career highs for Katie Wolf, and then, Michelle Mcdonald, I believe, 1 point away from her career high in the championship game. They're showing that, they're playing, when we talked with the coach, Scott Ballard, on Saturday afternoon, he said, Sunday afternoon, he said, the pressure's off. We're into the tournament, and now they're in the tournament, which, they don't feel that pressure. They just seem calm, cool, and collective, and they have a confidence that we've seen that has grown all season.
And on the men's side, you mentioned how hot the women's team is, how well they're playing right now. The men are another team that I don't think you want to play, like you just mentioned. Minnesota State gets the Warrior men in the first round of the NCAA tournament. A team, as we talked with Coach Leaf about, a team that the Warriors beat in the conference semifinal just a week ago. And now the Warriors get a rematch with the Mavericks. This Winona State team is playing together, and they are playing as well as they have all year, and they're playing finally to the potential that I think everybody saw in them.
Well, you look at their starting lineup, which is somewhat, it has been mixed and shuffled around, but now you'll probably see, Wahlberg again, Fisher, Vetty. It all depends on, the matchups, and the coaching staff always takes that into account, but you try and look at one guy to say, oh, we got to shut him down. Well, you got Clayton Vetty, you got Ben Fisher, you got John Wahlberg, Kellen Taylor, getting him back. What a great defensive specialist he is. He can also shoot the three. Brad Meyer. This team's healthy. It's confident. There's not one player that you can shut down and take this team down with.
Yeah, and that's what you saw in this NSIC tournament run from the men. It was a different player each night, somebody who stepped up, and multiple players each night. And as you were listing off those guys who had fantastic tournament showings, didn't even mention Xavier Humphrey, didn't mention C.J. Erickson, didn't mention Caleb Palkert, who played. He didn't score a lot of points, but his defense and rebounding was just absolutely outstanding. We've talked all year about how deep they are, and it's really, really showing right now.
And, you saw some foul trouble early in that championship game where Clayton Vetty couldn't play in that first half, and you said it, Caleb Palkert came in, he had 3 blocks. I'd argue that he had 5, but he picked up 2 quick fouls. And so when you had Palkert and Vetty, you tried to mix and match them. When CJ would have to go inside and guard the bigger guys underneath for St. Cloud, they're a little undersized, but when you have guys that can really guard anybody, such a great defensive team, and when they play their style of defense, we saw it against Mankato. Mankato got very frustrated when they try to come off those screens. Xavier Humphrey, I thought, did a nice job. Although Marcus Hill, upper 20s in points down the stretch, they really took him out of the basketball game, switching on the screens at the top of the key. Wahlberg would come off, Fisher, Xavier Humphrey. Everyone got into it, and everyone was communicating, and we're on the same page. And when this team is meshing, gelling, whatever you want to say, boy, are they a tough team to beat.
That's right. It's the 5th NSIC tournament championship for this Winona State team in the last 11 years. Just an amazing run that these Warriors have been able to put together under Coach Leaf. Now it's the 7th consecutive time that the Warriors have been in the national tournament. We look back through Winona State history at the national championship teams and everything they've been able to accomplish. And this is another chance for the Warriors to add to that already rich history and legacy here in Winona.
Well, whatever their record was in those seasons and in the regular season, they weren't first in the NSIC. They didn't get the regular season NSIC title. But they're 3-0. They're undefeated, and they're the hottest team heading into the regional tournament. Yes, it's at Mankato, and they had a few struggles there early in the season, but right now this team is riding an emotional high. They're playing, passionate basketball. They're playing. It's just fun to watch them. And if you didn't make it up to St. Paul to watch these teams this past weekend, do your best to listen on the radio. Come to Mankato. If you want to make the trip to Durango, it'll be well worth it.
There's an airport in Durango.
I guarantee you that.
Fly right in.
You can fly right in. Maybe there's some antlers on the roof, if I remember correctly. But just fantastic basketball and great teams to watch. This is truly March Madness at its finest.
Yeah, and it's going to be a lot of fun to watch, as you said, as we settle in for a very long, hopefully, postseason run from both the Winona State men and women. That's all the time we have today. Thanks very much for tuning in for this special NCAA tournament show here on the Warrior Sports Network. For Matt Prink, coaches Scott Ballard and Mike Leaf, and all our crew, thank you very much for tuning in.